What's up, world? Welcome to this special live edition here on Black Power Media in support of course, the emergency updating of Mumia Abu-Jamal and the latest that he is having to endure. We have a great setup for you to get you prepared for what will be the big press conference coming up at 4 o'clock Eastern. And we'll certainly be providing more information about that. But let me just let everybody know who we have here with us so far before we even get to some of our other guests. Of course, my man Kalonji Changa, my Black Power Media colleague, Renegade Culture, is here with us. Our soon-to-be comrade and colleague out there doing her great work with Burn It Down is Kim Brown. And then, of course, one of the movement lawyers, Bob Boyle, is with us to help us understand some of what's going on. Of course, Johanna Fernandez, Dr. Johanna Fernandez will be with us a little bit in a few minutes, perhaps Sophia Williams as well from the Mumia Support Committee and a group doing that work. But we wanted to at least get on and offer some commentary, some context, a little bit of background, and get people get a little more aware and energized about getting involved with their support for Mumia. Kalonji, Kim, Bob, first of all, good afternoon to all of you. Thanks for joining us. And Kalonji, what's up, man? You wanna get in and maybe talk a little bit about what's going on, and of course, our guest Bob Boyle, and then we'll invite Kim to jump on in as well here in just a second. But anyway, good to see you all. Thanks for joining us.
Good to see you as well. Yes. Definitely thank you all for joining us. It's always it's an honor, but it's also heart-wrenching to have to still, after all of these years, over 40 years, fight on behalf of Mumia Abu-Jamal, one of our most important figures, freedom fighters, and political prisoners, here in not only in the United States, but on the planet, So, we're here because of the fact that we know that we've been told that there's an emergency heart surgery situation going on for him. And he hasn't been able to get in touch with any of his loved ones, including his wife, his spokespeople, Pam Africa, and of course, his attorney, Bob Boyle. So we're here today to make a call and say that the same way that we're hitting the streets when one of our brothers and sisters are murdered by the state, we need to hit the streets. We need to flood the streets for Mumia around the world, because oftentimes we get it twisted. We wait till our folks are deceased or transitioned to move forward. But I really want to hear from Bob, because of the fact that Bob is one of Mumia's attorneys, and I'm sure that his update will be a little bit sharper than mine.
Yeah, good afternoon, and it's great to be here with you all, and thank you for having me. I'll start off with some good news. Mumia has had the surgery, and his doctor did reach his wife, and he's doing fine after the surgery. So, that's a good thing. That's according to his doctor. So he's, according to the doctor, he's resting comfortably. We still do not know the specific nature of the heart issue that required the surgery. We've requested the medical records and so forth, and we expect to be getting them, I hope, before the end of the day, and that'll tell us, be able to tell us some more. Mumia himself, however, has not had the opportunity to speak with his wife or any of his closest supporters. We hope that will change within the next several hours. There's been indications that it might, but as of right now, that has not occurred. And just in terms of a little background on this, if someone is in prison and they require emergency surgery, they're taken to an outside hospital. Very often, as is true in this case, the prison system will not tell you where they are, right, for quote-unquote security reasons. And that's the situation we're in terms of Mumia at the moment. They will also, and we haven't confirmed this, but it's policy that a prisoner who's in an outside hospital, not on a prison ward, is kept shackled to his hospital bed, his or her hospital bed. Now, someone will say, is that cruel and inhuman treatment? Yeah, it sure is. I just wish that the courts would agree with that. I spent some hours today looking up some case law on this, and would you believe that courts have upheld women in the early stages of labor who are also prisoners being shackled to a bed in a hospital? But that's the state of the law, and that's the sorry state of the law, and which also makes it even more important that there is political support and outcry when people, particularly the political prisoners such as Mumia, are treated like this. But also, we need to recognize that this kind of thing, the treatment of people in hospitals, happens every day across this country. People from prison going to the hospital, outside hospital, and they're shackled, and they're chained, and they're denied communication. And this is something that has to be changed on the policy level. And if anything called for illustrates the need for such a change, it's certainly what happened to Mumia over the last few days. And I see Dr. Fernandez has shown up.
Right. I just wanted to acknowledge her and welcome her to the platform and to the program and to the sort of pre-coverage of the 4 o'clock conference. We appreciate you for squeezing us in, Dr. Fernandez. And thank you for that summary, Bob Boyle, as well. Professor Fernandez, first of all, welcome. Thank you for joining us again. And is there anything that you would want to add to what you've heard from Bob Boyle, or to by way of update, or anything that you just would want to start us off with this afternoon? I think you're still muted. Let me unmute you there. Yeah, sorry, got you.
I invite everybody to join us this afternoon at 4 p.m. where you will get the latest developments, and there are quite a number of developments. But I think that, Bob Boyle's framework of what is expected in terms of basic rights accorded to prisoners who are ill and hospitalized is really important. And it's not just about the prisoner. The prisoner, of course, is key, but it's also the family and friends, right? We had a situation in which Mumia was hospitalized, we believe, on Saturday. And he was pretty much sequestered by the state for 5 days, 6 days. Nobody knew where he was. We finally figured out that there was a problem because he hadn't called any one of us. And we usually talk to him daily. So by day 5, we're all biting our nails, and we all come together, like the 3 or 4 of us, and call Bob and Brett, these are his attorneys, and demand that we get some answers from the prison. But the prison didn't even want to give his attorneys, who are literally in court suing the Department of Corrections for its mayhem. They didn't even want to give them information. They still haven't released Mumia's whereabouts. So at some point you have to ask, does a prisoner have rights that the state is bound to respect? Does a slave have rights that the state is bound to respect? And this is not just about Mumia, right? Although I do think that this is a special case because it is a case That's political. Mumia is a political prisoner, veteran Black Panther, accused of killing a white police officer in America. And we know that there's no middle ground to that ruling. However erroneous that ruling might have been, Mumia is demonized by the state, and everything he represents is a threat to the status quo. So the state is going to use everything at its disposal to repress articulations of freedom in his life and in that of the movement. Now, what I was thinking when Bob was talking is that had there not been a movement and a close network of people who love Mumia and who are ready to go to battle and fight to the bitter end to save his life, we don't know where Mumia would be today. So what I've learned over and over again in the prison work is that calling the prison, calling elected officials, calling the Department of Corrections, calling the governor works. It works, not just in the case of Mumia, but in the case of all prisoners. Prisons depend on families and friends abandoning those that the prisons are intent on controlling and whose lives the prisons want to disfigure. They depend on the anonymity of their control and repression. But when you have a group of people, family members, friends, calling the prison, exposing the insanity, prison doesn't want that attention because it wants to continue to do what it does nastily every day. So they'll take action immediately to shut you up.
I just want to say very quickly that if people go to letmumiaout.com, I've never actually seen a better setup that we're actually going to get into here on live before we wrap up for calling all of the numbers that need to be called. There's a very slick digital setup that people can very easily use to click and call via Skype or their phone. So to Professor Fernandez's point, please do go to letmumiaout.com and to not only register for the 4 p.m. Eastern press conference that she and others listed there will be a part of, but there you can also get very easy access to those numbers. Kalanji, Kim, Bob, anybody want to jump in there? Any questions, comments, things to bring up?
Yeah, we know that his 67th born date is coming up in about 9 days, I believe. Are there any mass demos scheduled? Because as we were talking a little while ago, it's really time for folks to start hitting the streets for Mumia on a hardcore level. Like I said earlier, we're so used to being reactionary. You know what I mean? We're so used to folks dying, and we don't want to see Mumia go out like our last brother who transitioned a few weeks ago over in California. So, do you all know, I haven't been to the website as of yet, that particular website, but are there any mass demos, and would it be wise to call for a mass demonstration?
So we do have activities planned for the 23rd, the day before Mumia's birthday, which is a Friday, and the 24th, which is a Saturday and Mumia's birthday. There are a series of events happening both online and in person. I think that on Saturday, there is a march in Philadelphia. This was planned before this crisis detonated. And so this is really a moment for people to come out and take action and support Mumia, but also all political prisoners and all aging prisoners, right? This is a crisis of barbarism. in
Right.
American society. As I've written previously, American prisons have turned into old people's homes for Black and Latinx elders, and they are sick. You go to the prison today, and people are in wheelchairs and walking around with canes. So part of the struggle is the call to release all aging people in prison, and that's literally the name of an organization: Release All Aging People in Prison over the age of 50 or with pre-existing conditions. It's an organization that emerged quite a number of years ago. It was started by Laura Whitehorn, one of the founders, former political prisoner herself, who thought ahead um, of this moment, because this crisis of pandemic has pretty much illustrated that prisons are death traps, especially for elders. A disproportionate number of whom got really draconian sentences in the 1980s and 90s for crimes that are now, hip and happening. Right? People are selling drugs legally in American society today, while people are behind bars for doing the same in a different epoch.
I just wanted to welcome and acknowledge Sophia Williams. Good afternoon, working on behalf of Mobilization for Mumia and helping spread the word. Good afternoon, Sophia. And I don't know if you have any, initial comments you want to jump off with, or if you want to respond to anything. I'm not sure how much of what you've heard, how much of what has been said you've heard, but if you want to just add anything, your thoughts about what the situation is with Mumia and what you would like to see be done in response, please go ahead and welcome.
Yes, hi, good afternoon. I thank you all for having me, and I really did not hear much. I just would like to say that in this moment, again, the call is to bring Mumia home, to have him freed, especially in a moment where we see that a virus has ravaged the prisons, and promises have been made by so many officials to let prisoners out, but yet we see those numbers does not add up to the rhetoric that has been said. So just to repeat that again, Mumia is an innocent. He's always maintained his innocence, and he deserves to be freed. Ultimately, what we see is that they are trying every method to keep him oppressed and trying to break him. And again, that's Mumia stronger than that. So I think it's just important to see the larger community and on an international level now, with everything being virtual, coming to support him in this moment. And this is the year to free all political prisoners. So that's it for now.
Right on.
Yeah.
Right on.
If I might, I wanted to, call out someone's name. On this Monday, I went to a Zoom memorial for Alvin Joyner, co-defendant of Russell Maroon Schultz and several others, and was in prison since 1970. And in a few months ago, I represented him. We had just filed a motion to vacate his conviction. He's 78 years old, or was 78 years old, contracted COVID at Chester Prison and was dead within 5 days. And this is after, being in prison since 1970. But there are a lot of Al Joyners. It really needs to energize us. It's a sad thing, but if anything can come of it, we need to, as Johanna said, particularly with respect to the aging prisoners, we need some real policy changes. And you mentioned, Johanna, the group RAP, Release Aging People in Prison. That was years of grassroots work that RAP did, changing the minds of even New York state legislators. who voted this year to end solitary confinement. And, I never thought I would live to see the day when the New York State legislature would pass such a bill. But we need to, do that grassroots work and see these political prisoners freed.
Right on. That's a horrific story.
And then, and I was going to say definitely, we need to remember Romaine Chip Fitzgerald, 51 years behind bars in this shithole of a country. It's a criminal act to keep a man or woman who has, again, fought on behalf of, our liberation. I can't express the way I feel when I see folks, jumping up and down and screaming for, folks that they don't know. You know what I mean? They're concerned about what the rappers are talking about. They're concerned about all this other bullshit. But here we have brothers and sisters who literally fought tooth and nail for us to be on the right side of history. And I salute folks like Bob Boyle, who has fought to get folks like Deruba out, and folks like Marshall Eddie Conway, and so many other political prisoners, while many of us have ignored, and unfortunately we become so desensitized here in America that when our loved ones are captured, it lasts a week or two, and we go back to normal and we forget, but there's so many brothers and sisters, so many comrades who've been fighting and who've been trying to survive, the Russell Maroon Schultz and the Sundiata Coleys. These are brothers. Sundiata's like what, 81 years old, 82 years old, still being held.
I thought it was even 84. Yeah, but go ahead. Yeah.
84. Time just don't stand still. Mm-hmm. I mean, like I said, Chip Fitzgerald, I'm 50. He was locked up 51 years, my entire life. I mean, this is ridiculous, man. I mean, Mumia himself, the fact that even while behind bars, he's maintained his fight, his struggle. When the whole situation, we're fighting on behalf of Troy Davis, Mumia was sending out commentaries. You know what I mean? When the crazy shit with Deruba and I went down, Mumia was sending out commentaries. You know what I mean? He has his ear and finger to the pulse of the streets better than many of us who are out here now.
Indeed.
So it's imperative, man. We can't let him go out like that. Like I said, yes, this thing going on in Philly, we've been to Philly back and forth for the 50th, for the 60th, so on and so forth. But now around the world, we have to hit the streets, man. We got, if you're going to fight for someone, Mumia is a prime candidate.
Johanna and Bob and Sophia, I don't know, especially given the 4:00 event, how much time exactly we all have with you all. But and Kim, I definitely want give you a chance to jump in at any point. But I only have one quick question of clarity, and then one broad question that I can't help but keep coming back to for all three of you, actually. The first one, Bob, if I heard correctly, if I heard correctly, we know for sure that Mumia has come out okay from surgery, but we still don't know, to Johanna, your point, where he is. Is that the more or less the latest that I'm understanding from the both of you?
Yes, the doctor spoke to his wife, called his wife, and told her that he's out of surgery and he was resting comfortably. I mean, that's about can say after major surgery. So
sure, right.
I'm thankful as to that. But yeah, we still don't know the hospital that he's in.
Wow. Okay. And then the broad question I have is I can't help but continue to be frustrated at when I hear actually all of the summaries that have been offered already today. I can't help but get renewed in my anger at for all the international support Mumia has gotten. There are still these strong pockets within circles or political spaces we would expect there to be support that I don't see it coming. And, so for instance, for I think Julian Assange should be freed. But for all of the discussion that he gets, particularly around the question of his journalism exposing state crime, I can't help but think, I mean, my goodness, what better example or longer, more prolonged example of a journalist exposing state crime and who's being punished for it than someone like Mumia. Is there anything that you all would want to say, or any response or any thoughts about the what I'm describing here as pockets of insufficient discussion or coverage where we might think it might come, or anything at all about I don't know, or is my frustration misplaced, or any thoughts on that?
Well, other than the fact that Black suffering is an inconvenient truth in America, but the state is going to do what the state is going to do. Mainstream media is going to attempt to ignore Black political prisoners, is going to demonize them. But there is a fierce movement that has kept Mumia and other political prisoners who are part of the Black radical tradition alive. Hands down, if there had not been a movement support network surrounding Mumia would be dead. Dead. Mumia fainted in the infirmary room 5 years ago. Fainted. His blood sugar went up to like 750 something or 67, 60 something. 800 is dead.
810.
Oh, he had swelling of the brain. He had swelling of the brain, and he had a skin condition that disfigured his body while all of this was happening. And he fell into a diabetic coma because they were administering him the poison that was going to do him in. And those are, what are they called, Bob? Steroids that he was reacting to violently, and they had not monitored the situation. And literally, I knew that Mumia was not well, and I forced Heidi Bogosian, a friend of mine, to just go to the prison with me that morning that he fainted. And that same day, there was a court hearing around Mumia's case happening 2 counties down. And immediately we call Pam Africa, and Pam Africa's like, all right, we're leaving the court and we're going to the site where Mumia was probably hospitalized. And he stayed in the hospital for, I think, a week or 2. And it took a movement doctor to figure out that the underlying cause of Mumia's health problems was hepatitis C. We figured it out. He had been in the hospital, and we figured this out. And then we sued the Department of Corrections to get him the cure, because in the United States, the cure for hepatitis C costs approximately $100,000. So no prison wants to lay out $100,000 to cure a prisoner, 700,000 of whom have hepatitis C, which is a deadly disease in American prisons. We won, even though all the lawyers we consulted said there's absolutely no snowball's chance in hell that we're going to win. And Pam Africa was like, we don't care. We don't care. It's about suing because this is the right thing to do. And Bob and Brett Grody, Bob Boyle and Brett Grody, after 2 years of struggle, but of also the movement packing the courts, prevailed. So that's a long-winded statement, but I want to just go back to Chip Fitzgerald for a moment. Chip Fitzgerald, and I don't know if Bob mentioned this, was shackled to his hospital bed while he was unconscious, barely conscious. This was 2 weeks ago. And he died in shackles. So that's the barbarism of the shithole of a country, as someone said previously. I'm just quoting.
Just quoting.
I'm just quoting.
It's a good quote.
I just want to get back to Jared's question for a second. You've had Dharuba bin Mahad on for a few times, and he would certainly give an analysis of what happened to the portion of the movement that he came out of, that created the political prisoners, the Black Panther Party, BLA kind of tendency of the movement, and the attacks that they were under, and really the abandonment of them when the state came after them, and the effects of that, still being clear today. And I think that's in part can account for, some of the lack of support for political prisoners.
I have some information about the activities around April 23rd and 24th, more specific, but I want to offer the floor to others before I come back on that.
Okay. Sophia, did you want to respond to any of that or add anything?
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything that has been said. I mean, Johanna laid out that time in 2015 when, again, a movement saved Mumia, and Mumia was literally on his deathbed. I wanted to add, and I think this was back to, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time seeing, so I'm not really seeing the brother's name, who spoke about like the rap stars and how people are more engrossed with what's happening around that. But someone said to me earlier that it's so real to see what's happening to Mumia, and I think people will say things like that, but for me it's a matter of, and I'm sure for many people it's a matter of, no, it's really not surreal in a country where it goes around the world being the hegemon, being the big bad bully, speaking about what's just, speaking about humanitarian ways of being, but within its own corridors, it's doing things like this, and it's talks about justice, equality, and liberty for all. It's really not surreal in a space like this to see these things happen to Mumia and many other folks like Mumia, because of course Mumia represents so many other prisoners, and Mumia represents those in the the so-called ghettos of Philadelphia and elsewhere, right? And so when I hear that, it's just like, no, this is truly what America has been built upon, and we're seeing it more and more. And the fact that he is a political prisoner, again, we're within a country that does not think or believe that there are political prisoners, that they have that kind of situation here. So just wanted to piggyback on those two things, because ultimately people are being fed a steady diet of lies from day one, and so it continues to show even in this case around Mumia that many people don't know. Many people don't know who he is, because it's the system that wants to continue to keep his voice silenced and let it be known that he's a cop killer, but not let it be known that that's an untrue narrative, and the true narrative is so and so. I believe, and I've always believed this, that if many more people knew about the Mumias and the Sundiatas and the Russell Maroon Schultz and so on, we, and people are at a level differently mentally when it comes on to coming together and uniting. We could be at a level where we would all band and fight against this system in a revolutionary way. But that's to come. And I think that's why Mumia's voice is so powerful, because in spite of what he has gone through, in spite of what he continues to go through, he continues to push that message that we must not give up and we must not fight. And that's exactly what we're seeing with Mumia, even this day, where he has just like had surgery and he's still here with us. So I just wanted to leave it at that for now.
Right on. And I keep going back to this the quote in the new edition of his co-written book with Stephen Vittoria, that the state would rather give me an Uzi than a microphone.
On the real.
Because he'd be dangerous with those messages. And Johanna, you said you had an update on something?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that Mumia and other political prisoners are punished because they dared to stand up and fight. And of course, Mumia has been fighting from the heart of empire, right? I remember that in the 1990s, he was facing execution, and the massive movement cohered to save his life. I mean, it was a different moment. And Mumia was the face of the movement against the death penalty and the emerging movement against mass incarceration. And he had written this book, Life from Death Row, that became a New York Times bestseller as he was facing execution.
That's right.
So that image and concept of resistance in the face of the most unrelenting state violence against you, like, made him the stuff of legend. He was the Che Guevara of our time, right? Incredibly inspiring courage to not shut up because what you're saying are inconvenient truths from the perspective of empire. But I want to go back to the movement, because even though folks are paying attention to, social media and the navel gazers on social media, when people hear about political prisoners, when people hear about Russell Maroon Shoatz and his stories, or when they hear about Sekou Odinga, right? The Spider-Man of Black political prisoners who literally free Assata Shakur. When they hear about Mumia, when they read about Assata, people, even the most superficial among us, they're like, So these stories are really inspiring, and have the potential to redirect our purpose and our gaze. And so our job has to be to amplify the best stories of struggle, right? Of which Mumia is one. Sundiata Acoli worked for the NSA.
I know, right? That's why.
Yeah,
Yeah,
NASA.
NASA. That's right.
NASA. Don't do it like that.
Right.
NASA. Like,
Yes.
one of the first Black mathematicians to work with NASA. And he was a revolutionary, and he decided to redirect his labor to build the Black revolutionary movement. I mean, that's the stuff of superhero, right? That's the stuff of superhero comics that we need to amplify. And to that end, I just want to give people a sense of what exactly it is that we're doing. On April 23rd, we're having a virtual event from 6 to 8 p.m. featuring Mark Lamont Hill, Palestinian activists, and writer Susie Abu Hawa. We're also going to have members of Rage Against the Machine perform. And this is going to be a fundraiser. This is all part of a celebration of Mumia's life, because the movement gathers on April 24th and that weekend to celebrate his birthday, which is on April 24th. Then on April 24th itself, we're going to have a rally at City Hall, again, recognizing Mumia's birthday, featuring M1 of Dead Prez, Chairman Fred Hampton Jr., Immortal Technique, and there are going to be buses and caravans coming from New Jersey, New York City, DC, Maryland, and Virginia. And that event begins at 2 p.m. in the streets, rally in front of Philadelphia City Hall. And then on April 25th, we're having a Maroon Shoats dedication from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. And Russell Maroon Shoats is a Black political prisoner, also housed in Pennsylvania prisons. And that's going to be at Maroon Garden in West Philly. And it's going to be followed by a march to Malcolm X Park. And the event at Malcolm X Park is from 1 to 4 p.m. And you can find information about all of this at letmumiaout.com. Letmumiaout.com. So we've got a full weekend of protest, celebration, and resistance. And everyone and their mother is going to be there. And we ask people to join us, but also join us most immediately at 4 p.m. when you are going to get the skinny on Mumia's situation and what he, his family, and the movement underwent in the last week.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that. And looks like it's about to be up in Philly pretty next week. It's about to be a hot weekend in a couple of days. So I look like I will definitely be heading up to that joint for sure, and look forward to seeing whoever's up there with us. Speaking of that point, though, I had one question. I know, Kalonji, you have a lot of experience with this. One of the things that's actually happening right now is just sort of selfishly, is my hip hop class is joining us, or should be. And I do like to point out to them some of what you all have raised, and in terms of Johanna, even talk about some of the folks that you have coming out on that weekend. It certainly, for some of us, brings back a lot of memories of what used to be for a time a Kalonji called hip hop activism. So I can't help but laugh every time I struggle with that phrase, but yeah, I know. Yeah, but hip hop has been a lot, has had a lot to do with promoting Mumia and other political prisoners' cases, despite a lot of the bad rap, pun intended, that hip hop has gotten over the years. I'd be interested, Johanna. I know you probably on the clock more than anybody. But if before you leave, if you want to say a word about that, and then anything else, as I know you have to get ready to leave. But
about hip hop activism.
Yeah, about the rap world's involvement in supporting Mumia and political prisoners.
Well, I think the broader question is, what is the relationship between art and struggle? And what leads to struggle, always struggle and revolution, create the conditions within which the most creative, piercing, emotional, meaningful art, music is produced. So art, art is usually in the background, and definitely some artists have their finger on the pulse of the moment, but ultimately we need to let artists be artists, right? We need that because we need art. And there are moments when there is this incredible fusion of art and revolution. And of course, there's Hollywood and the music industry, which is predatory in the United States. But if you look at the Mumia movement, there have been some very consistent hip hop artists who do what they do from where they are. And Immortal Technique is one of them. Immortal Technique is always talking about some problem in the world. And he might not be in the streets, although he often is in the streets accompanying us on a march. But he's speaking to broader audiences about political issues who might not be looking for a political, analysis of what's wrong with the world. M1, M1 is going to speak, by the way. I had a conversation with him and I was like, do you want to speak or do you want to perform? Because we'd rather you speak. And he's like, no, I want to speak. M1, you probably know, was hugely involved in the campaign that freed Fred Hampton Jr. He led that campaign. Y'all know that, right? Mm-hmm. So before M1 was a hip hop artist, he was an organizer. And so every time I hear M1 speak, I'm like, yeah, that's an organizer right there. He might be pretending to be something else right now, but he's got politics in his DNA. Also, I may be talking too much about M1. M1's mother was imprisoned at a very young age. And so he comes to the politics of imprisonment from a very profoundly personal and traumatic position. And he's also a revolutionary, right? Who's not in a revolutionary organization, as far as I know. But yeah, and then there are all the other people that I agree with you, brother, who are hip hop activists, who want to be cute and who are in it for whatever Black Lives Matter could offer them in terms of cred. And I say peace.
Hey, I just want to say,
and if we could use you, yes. And you want to give us some money? Cool.
Well, just quickly, to shout out to this is Revolution podcast of Brother Miles. This is not what I'm talking about, but this is exactly why I phrased the question the way I said it. I'm not talking about the mainstream rap world. I'm talking about the hip hop community, or the politicized rap world that's often connected to political movements. So when anyway, we can talk about hip hop activism another time. But anyway, so I'm.
Can I just say the last thing? I think it's, you know what? I mean, I've taken hip hop artists to visit Mumia, like at least 4 or 5 of them. Mm-hmm. And it is a little depressing because it takes a lot to visit Mumia. Like, you got to be on a list. You've got to be prioritized. It takes cartwheeling backward, fighting with the state. And then these folks don't even put their fucking picture up on social media that they took with Mumia. So there are, of course, I mean, I think that anyone who thinks that art and hip hop is going to get us to the revolution is crazy. Right. There are limitations, but the best hip hop artists, I think the best artists generally connect emotionally with the world and amplify people's understanding or amplify a radical understanding of the problems in society. Mm-hmm. But hip hop artists they're not organizers.
Right on. Kalani, anybody want to jump in on this? Anybody want to say anything? And again, I'm trying to be mindful of the time anyway.
I'll add on after Kim Brown, because we haven't heard from downtown Kim Brown.
Yeah, come on in. Burn it down with Kim Brown.
Unmute that mic, Kim.
Yeah, unmute that mic. There we go.
Oh, it's me.
There you go. You're good now. You're good.
Yeah, I'm sorry I've been quiet. I didn't hear the first part of the discussion, but from what I heard, I absolutely agree with everything that is being said. I mean, I didn't become familiar with the struggle of Mumia Abu-Jamal until I was in college up at Temple, and all my Philly brethren and sistren, to his situation and to what happened. And the thing that always jumped out about me, and it still jumps out to me, is that there is no limit to the extent that the state will go in order to punish Black people and Indigenous people for speaking out and being very vocal about our liberation and taking no shorts about it. And sometimes people be like, oh, well, the ancestors, they died for us to be free. Well, no, we can still die for our freedom. Us dying on behalf of our freedom absolutely did not end or cease at a prior generation, but it absolutely still continues. And what happened to Mumia could absolutely still happen to Black liberation activists out here right now, today, and is absolutely still happening with the persecution of activists. We're seeing it in Minneapolis, we've seen it in Ferguson, we've seen it in Baltimore, we've seen it in DC. So I've always very much identified with the struggle of Mumia, and have always wanted his freedom to eventually come. But I remember back in 2015 when he was commuted from death row, which everybody thought was really exciting, but that was only a partial victory. His complete liberation, his complete freedom is what needs to happen now. And the fact that he and other incarcerated people have been subjected to this COVID virus intentionally. I had a conversation with Professor Kia Caldwell from UNC. We were talking about how COVID impacts Black Brazilians and Black Americans disproportionately, and the prison population was similar to that. But what the sister said to me that always stuck with me was, genocide is not about intent, it's about outcomes. But the intent in this, incarcerated people being subjected to horrible, shittier conditions during COVID was definitely intentional. And everything that has happened to Mumia Abu-Jamal since he's been in jail has been intentional. So the fact that he is still alive today and fighting for his life is a testament, as the sister said earlier, that he is absolutely on superhero status. But now it's on everybody else that's on the outside to also don them capes and to make sure that we push it all the way to the end and make sure that he gets out of jail.
Right on.
I'd like to add on to what Dr. Fernandez was saying in regards to the artists. Back in the day, there was a more serious drive for Mumia. You had songs like Free Mumia by KRS-One and Channel Live. You had Chuck D and Public Enemy talking about Mumia. Even Nas, chilling on a VI with Mumia, stuff like that. You know what I mean? So it was cool and fashionable, just like now when you talk about so-called Black Lives Matter. So but as Che Guevara pointed out, the role of the propagandist is just as important as the role of the guerrilla. We look at folks like Paul Robeson, who was one of our most important revolutionaries, who happened to be a singer and a actor. But he was a revolutionary, and he was an international revolutionary, a communist when it wasn't fashionable, an outright outward communist. You have a number of different artists, and I think, as Jared was pointing out, we have to allow people to get in where they fit in, and not allow them to dictate what the movement is about, but at the very least help to push and push the propaganda in regards to it. But at the same time, we as organizers, it is our duty and it is our job to politicize these artists when they come in our midst. Oftentimes we utilize these artists for our different concerts, our Black August concerts, and we do a thing, Poets for Political Prisoners. We utilize them, but a lot of times the organizers and the activists, they get caught up in the fanfare. You understand what I'm saying? They get caught up in cult of personality. I'm a revolutionary. I'm not a groupie. So I'm not into personality. I don't care if you skywrite my name or it's anonymous, as the Roots would say. At the end of the day, it's about this work. So oftentimes, seeing that we work with a lot of different artists, folks always asking, well, did they donate any money? Did they go out to this rally? Did you donate any money? And did you go out to that rally? And did you go out to burn it down? Because of the fact that it is your responsibility. It's not the responsibility of Little Yachty or Little Wayne or Little Shithead or whatever their name is. It is your particular, it's your responsibility. Now, you could push up on them and you could hold them accountable like Chairman Fred back in the day with Richard Pryor and Nipsey Russell and all these other artists. But we have to be realistic in our people's liberation movement and struggle. we have to be forthcoming and we have to be sincere about how we move. And it has to be the people over profit, and we can't, again, I'm not looking, I can utilize some of these artists who we don't necessarily agree with, but we know to let them off at a certain stop on the at a certain train station. You know what I mean? So let's be clear about that. And that goes for a lot of different activists and organizers out there as well, because there's a lot of them that's just as full of shit as some of these artists. But I'll hold my tongue for now because it's about Mumia.
Just to be clear, specifically for some of my students, so that they're clear what we're talking about here. When I mentioned the phrase hip hop activist, I'm talking about the last 20 years or so of folks who have been arguing that hip hop could be this vehicle, almost as a racial, ethnic, or culture or national designation to lead us towards liberation. And then, and I always struggled with that phrase and that approach. But I also, so that's one thing. Then I just was trying to point out that there are politicized, underground, often non-commercial artists who do a lot of their cultural work to support these politics that don't get the attention. So I wasn't trying to just talk about the commercial artists that come parachuting in from time to time, or those who are legitimately trying to become politicized and radicalized. I was really trying to acknowledge that hip hop as a cultural expression beyond the commercial mainstream has actually said quite a bit about not just Mumia, but political prisoners and some of the politics that we're talking about here. So that was the point I was just trying to isolate or draw out. And then when you mentioned some of the rappers that would be on hand for the event, the events on the 23rd, 24th, and 25th, I just wanted to quickly highlight that wing of the rap world that has constantly been on hand to support this kind of work. So that was it that I was just trying to point out there, not trying to romanticize or condemn unduly any amount of the broader hip hop community or community in general. But Johanna, again, I keep trying to be mindful because I know you got it. But so if there are any last words, I know you got to get set. But I really appreciate obviously all the work you continue to do. And we look forward to hearing from you some more and hopefully having you back again for some more discussion and some better news, of course, and some victories maybe to talk about. But anyway, thank you very much and take good care. Yeah.
Well, there are 2 soldiers here who are left behind. I don't know how much longer they have, but I just do want to acknowledge something that was acknowledged previously, which is that Bob Boyle has freed quite a number of Black political prisoners.
That's right.
Like,
That's right.
Singular. I mean, I probably the attorney that has been involved in the most campaigns and legal work to free political prisoners in America.
Hey,
so that's that's a book that's waiting and a movie that's waiting to be made and a story
and
tell
and a set of extended interviews here on Black Power Media.
Yeah.
Right. I would quote.
Thank you very much. There's a lot of
Jared. So I'm going to interview him first. Okay.
I'm sorry. Oh, of course.
First, so I need to interview him first.
No doubt.
But there's
we'll wait our turn.
I'm proud to also be a part of. We used to call us a cabal of lawyers. And I'll mention, there's been many African American Black lawyers who have been involved in this work, but there's also this cabal of white lawyers, radical lawyers, and I come out of that tradition. They trained me, and of course, I have to say, Dhoruba bin Wahad trained me since I met him when I was 20 years old, and I'm still sane. At least I think I'm saying, but there's a small and could be bigger, legacy of radical attorneys who have William Kunstler, Charlie Gary, Liz Fink, Bob Bloom, who were there when people were under attack and who were attacked themselves. Lynn Stewart, who I represented. were there, and we need more of them. That's
She
part
got
of our
punished
job
herself.
too,
Yeah.
is to, set forth for the next generation, because it's time for us to turn it over to you young people, and get the young people energized. So that's what we need to do.
Although, Bob, I'm sure you feel like, as many of us do, that once we get this round of political prisoners free, that kind of work will then be moot, right? There's not going to be any more political prisoners that need that kind of legal support going forward, right? I mean, this is
As you
it, right?
say, with your tongue firmly in cheek. Yeah, I'm sure. Well, it's a different world now, but there's going to be similarities, and as long as there's movements of resistance, there's going to be political prisoners. There's going to be people mowed down in the street, and we have to be ready for that.
Right on. Right on. Right. Thank you both very much, Professor Fernandez. Again, Bob Boyle, thank you very much. Greatly appreciate you both.
Thank you.
Look forward to hearing more from you.
Yes, indeed. And thanks. And it was an honor to be here with this whole panel.
Absolutely. It's an honor to have you. Appreciate you. Take good care.
Likewise.
Be safe out there.
Yes, indeed. Be safe. Take good care, everybody. All right. All right, people. Sophia is still with us. I believe she's endeavoring to stick with us. Got a number of good people out there in the chat and the comments, of course. Kalonji, I'm just a little behind the scenes of the programming here. I want to shout you out for and particularly credit you for making sure Bob got on here. You know of his work a lot, more closely certainly than I do, but just indirectly through, obviously following Mumia and talking to Daruba from time to time. I've had the pleasure of being in contact or indirectly or, offline with Bob, and a lot of fascinating work. So I just wanted to shout you out quickly for making sure he got here, because we do need to big him up while he's still here and try to bring him back on, after Johanna gets her round of interviews. We definitely need to hear more from him as well.
Without a doubt. If I would quote the aspiring capitalist 50 Cent, when he said Eminem is his favorite white boy, Bob Boyle is definitely my favorite white boy. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy. A real quick story, man. We were doing we did a piece down here. I'm not going to name all the folks who were on the bill, but it was a bill with some narrow nationalists, and Daruba was on the bill. So Daruba brought Bob to the spot, to the venue, and his brother pulled me to the side. He's like, "Yo, who's that white boy? Whatever, so on and so forth, man. Such and such ain't gonna want to speak if there's somebody white in the audience." I said, "Listen, man, don't go." I said, "Don't." He said, "I'm about to go talk to Daruba." I said, "No, you're not." I said, "I'll go talk to Daruba because you about to get your feelings hurt up in this motherfucker." So I worked it out since I was the host. I didn't tell Daruba. I said, "Yo, D, I know y'all got to rush to the airport first. You want to go in and speak first?" So he was like, "Yeah, okay, cool." But I was like, but when I got up there to address the audience, I'm like, some of you get so caught up in what a cat looked like. When you talk about our freedom fighters, a lot of black folks, a lot of black attorneys dropped out early, and some came in late and they got credit. And there's been folks like Liz Fink, and there's been folks like Lynn Stewart and Bob Boyle and so many others that put in work. And of course we've had
Ron Kuby,
without a doubt. And these are folks who got people out, and definitely salute to Chokwe Lumumba and all our brothers and sisters who put in that work as well. But, the thing is, we deal with truth. You know what I'm saying? We can't, we can't just say that, because of the fact that, we don't like white folks. You know what I'm saying? We're against white supremacy indeed. But we also accept whatever assistance we can get in the liberation of our brothers and sisters. You know what I mean? So let's not get it twisted. Some of you get caught up in, in the bullshit. There's some black folks out here. There's some grave diggers, grave robbers out here right now that's getting this money in the name of brothers and sisters who have been murdered in the streets. And we'll be talking about that on Renegade Culture tonight with Jared Ball.
Hey, but
and a few
listen,
other folks.
because I know that Sophia, I know that you're up on a clock here too, and I wanted to make sure you got a chance to give any of your last thoughts for this discussion on what's happening today and what anything else you need us to know from your perspective on any of this, obviously, but particular to Mumia and the work you're all involved in right now with mobilization for Mumia.
Yeah, I definitely thank you all again for this great programming. I'm just listening and trying to digest and take it all in. I think this may be my first time tuning into your program in such a deeper way. So it's been fascinating to hear the many topics and the connections with hip hop and all of that good stuff, which is also a big thing of mine. But this went deeper than anything I've heard in a minute. So thank you all for that. And I think just going back to the aspect of today and Mumia, I think it's just important that people continue to send as much solidarity, love, prayers, and well wishes for Mumia, and really realize that we're anytime you're so close to victory, there's always these things that come into the way that would have one believe that, yeah, this, have people become negative about things. I'm really hopeful that he's closer to freedom than he's ever been, because we're clearly telling the system that this movement will never stop. It hasn't stopped for 40 years this year or so. We're not going to stop now in the midst of Mumia going through such a important surgery, but even beyond that, just the other day, not even probably a month now, just getting through COVID and going through that aspect, and he lived through that. So I think I just want to do my best to remind people that this movement is strong as ever, and Mumia continues to be the voice of the voiceless and continues to stand up in the face of serious resistance, even in the midst of his own resistance, and he continues to speak for others. So let's tune in all at 4 p.m. Again, the
Yes, indeed.
flyers are out there. Let's tune in. It will be a great press conference. I think this is going to be a press conference where there's much energy and hope and victories to come from this. So I hope people will tune in and bring their whole team and their crew with them, because ultimately we have to continue to show this corrupt, rotten system that Mumia will not die on our watch. The world is watching, and people are going to be uproar when Mumia does come home, and ultimately the system is now on trial when everything comes out in the open. So that's what we're all looking forward to. And so we continue to say 2021 is the year to free all political prisoners. So I'll end with that before I try to start to babble a bit. But thank you again for this time on this amazing program, and looking forward to more opportunities with everyone here. Thank you.
Anytime,
Thank you for your
Sophia. Thank you
service.
very much for your work.
Yes.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Likewise,
Peace.
take care. Peace. And everybody you see right there, letmumiaout.com is where you can you see the press conference at 4:00 Eastern, and we'll make way, of course, by then, and support, all of that. To our crew here, Kim, Kalanji, the only thing that I have left on my little list of an agenda for this sort of pre-conference or pre-press conference discussion is to actually make some calls on behalf of Mumia.
Yes.
I haven't made mine yet today, so I was going to actually save it, because when we used to do radio, it used to be kind of fun to do this live on the air, to call the authorities. So I was going to do that here, but I obviously want to make sure in the time, we got a little bit of time, but the time, if either of you got something you wanted to make sure we got to or bring up or get into, please jump on in. I'm going to share the screen just while you do that. Sorry, just so that people can see where what I'm doing here. But yeah.
Anyway, but I'm having some technical difficulties over here. I think I'm
right on.
some bad energy in the air. I'm about to burn some rosemary as soon as we sign off. But
okay, all right.
I mean, there was so much said, and I'm so deeply appreciative to these people that continue to work to free Mumia even after all these years, especially after all these years. And again, it just strikes me so personally about, you know, the precariousness of our freedom as we're trying to advocate for our freedom, right? Like the white supremacist system is vengeful and determined and relentless, and so many of us have had to, you know, be under that thumb of either the state violence or just even like societal violence. You know, it's just really it's both disheartening and encouraging, like the fact that this man has been able to survive all that he has survived in jail, and then as he's at this point in his life where he's dealing with illness, you know, to not even barely be treated with the lowest standard of humanity by the state and by the prison system. But the fact that there's so much support for him out here on the outside is really a testament to the validity and the realness of his struggle. You know, like people wouldn't be out here rallying for him en masse for now decades if they didn't believe in the work that he had did, in the persecution that he had suffered and continues to suffer. So it's always an inspiration. The fact that Mumia has survived all that he has, but it's still not over, right? Like he has to get out. Like there's no second prize for this. Like he has to walk out of that jail for all of us. You know what I mean?
Right on. I'm just getting the number here. I'm gonna put it on I put it in the chat, but I meant to put it in the banner here if people want to call.
Yeah, so all the folks that's in the chat, you know, right now we're looking like we have about 133 people on. So we want to issue a challenge for everyone in the chat right now to make this call to the governor, Tom Wolf, and Philly DA and Pennsylvania.
The governor's office cannot process unemployment compensation or pandemic unemployment assistance claims.
My bad. I didn't mean to cut you off.
It's all good. Yeah, call the governor's office. What I'm saying.
And you know, was it Kalanji? Did you make the point about the New York General Assembly outlawing the death penalty? Was that you who said that earlier?
No, I believe that was Bob.
Unemployment assistance customer service.
They got a customer service line for Mumia?
That's what's happening. I mean,
that's them trying to discourage the situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think they changed that joint. Didn't they change it?
Oh, they did. They get more savvy every year. Trust.
So they changed it just since this thing got set up?
They colder than the white man. Oh, they are the white man. My bad.
By the way,
Mumia being free is not a pie in the sky kind of dream, y'all. Like, I mean, just think about all the things that has unfolded like over the past, let's say 5 to 10 years, shit that you thought you would never see in your lifetime, like stuff that has completely blown my mind. So everything is within the realm of possibility. So y'all keep the hope alive, man. It's not over.
Okay, we ain't gonna be quoting Jesse up on here, but I get your point. and to me, I just want to say to the people, because I keep hearing the whole thing in our lifetime, I got a wicked ass mind. So if you can see what's in my mind, the things that I expect to happen before we leave, you know what I mean?
Hey,
you wouldn't even understand.
Hey, up with hope, down with dope. Come on now.
Yeah. Okay now.
But
She from DC. Shout out to DC.
I'm from Maryland, man.
You from Maryland? Oh, okay. My bad.
You can't claim to be a Washingtonian when you are a Maryland Bama. That is not.
No, it's not. It's a dangerous. That's dangerous and problem causing.
No doubt. Shout out to all the comrades that's out there, man. I see a lot of you, Gabe, Safari, Troy, a number of you folks out there that I know that put in that work. Appreciate you, man. And everybody else who I can't read right now. We together on it.
I think all of them set this up differently.
Oh yeah.
There's no voicemail. There's no.
It's a discouraging tactic, man.
Wow. I thought on a weekend that it had took me through all that rigmarole, but no. Apparently they have made this a much more difficult process.
Usually you can get someone in the office. You could get a voicemail. The last time I remember we did this when I was doing radio some years ago, we did this on the air and we got was it the governor's office? Like she was on the phone with us. We were talking to her live.
Yeah.
And she was like, you want to free who? What?
Man, listen, man.
Now you know who we talking about.
Yeah. No, that's the MO, man. But
they probably got a big poster on the wall saying, never free this dude.
Ever. And that's the whole thing. I think that, our people have to understand that these are assassination attempts on their lives. This ain't just, this is death by medical apartheid. You know what I'm saying? This is an execution attempt. It's not just, they don't want to treat him. I mean, they don't want to treat him because they don't want him to be here, And one of the things I think Johanna mentioned about the whole shackles, we were talking about so many brothers and sisters,
Chip.
But about Chip, being shackled. Yeah. I mean, that's the MO. When Katherine Johnston, 92-year-old, was gunned down here in Atlanta, they handcuffed her and left her in a pool of blood after she was already deceased. You understand what I'm saying? So these bastards want you to live and die a slave. They want you to, if there's an afterlife, they want you to go fill in them shackles. But we don't die, we multiply. We're gonna keep this thing moving.
Mm-hmm. Kim, just real quick with because I did want to, one of the reasons we were very happy that you were joining us this afternoon is because we are trying to build this working relationship between BPM and Burn It Down. So we're very happy to have this initial collaborative run here. I just wonder if you would say a word or two about Burn It Down and your approach, or maybe over the time you've been doing the show, to this kind of work, to political prisoners, anybody who, the few people who might, not be familiar with your show, who are familiar with this platform, or those, I don't know, maybe who are familiar with you, haven't heard you talk most recently about Mumia. I don't know exactly, but where have you been, or where are you on these issues of political imprisonment and to your point, similar to mine. I mean, Mumia was one of the first political prisoners that was sort of the focal point for some work as a young man myself, once upon a time. And unfortunately, to Kalanji's point, he's still there, which is crazy. And I'm not such a young man anymore. Yeah. But anyway, I just wanted to give you a chance to riff on some of that, Kim, if you had any thoughts.
Absolutely. I mean, I actually had the great fortune, the great opportunity to speak with Mumia. Maybe this was 2012. I was hosting a radio show in DC, and he had the chance to call in, and it was really one of the highlights of my have the chance to speak with him and to hear directly his voice and us interact back and forth. But the plight of our political prisoners, especially our elders right now, it's dire. Like this is urgent, because I mean, this is a generation of our soldiers, our revolutionaries, our foundation layers to what our ideas of Black liberation look like. Like these were the architects of that. So to see them, I won't say languish, but really suffer behind bars because of the punitive cruelty of the U.S. government, is something that should really incite everybody. And so on my show, on my platform, Burn It Down with Kim Brown, I basically try to talk about stuff, politics, social issues from a perspective of, not non-political political party affiliation, basically. It's so ridiculous how a lot of times political discourse is just boiled down to, Democrats, Republicans, when really our problems are far beyond the resolve of either the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. So I like to think that maybe like I talk about the same stuff as y'all, but I'm just not as smart. I just cuss way more and just smoke
whatever
in front
whatever.
And if you cuss more than me, you're gonna get whiteballed on Black Power Media.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I'm not in that race. I have to admit that, but there's a race to the cuss line on this channel. You might be. I don't know if you're gonna come in first or not. It's good.
Yeah, I think I'm in 7th place right now, right?
You are all you. It's like KRS said. I'm not number one. I'm number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
That's right. Yes. So
You cold, brother.
There's a good amount of cussing going down on my channel, and right now, so let me bring y'all up to speed and we make this quick because I think my phone is about to do something I don't want it to do. But so on my Tuesday show, we were talking about obviously the uprisings that are happening outside of Minneapolis in Brooklyn Center as a result of the murder of Daunte Wright. And one of my comments I said was picked up by conservative media. Like it's been run on the Daily Caller. Like these motherfuckers is coming out the woodworks up furious because I said, I don't care if it's the Dollar Tree, if it's the Advanced Auto Part, if it's the Target, loot that shit, loot all that shit. Because the bottom line is there's nothing in none of them stores that equal the life of Daunte Wright, that equal the life of George Floyd, or equal the life of any other person, Black, Indigenous, Latinx, whatever, who have been murdered by the state. Fuck them stores. I don't give a shit about them stores. Fuck them stores. Burn them, all them bitches down for all I can. Or take as much out of them shit as you need to, as you see. Because
look at Kalaji. She got him.
No mas. Hey, she's trying to take the crown in.
That's what I said. I told her.
Hey, don't ask. Y'all
hey, the sisters on BPM don't give me no slack, brother.
Hey, I'm telling you, it's gonna be a struggle. I watched that episode, Kim, and I was cracking up because I was thinking we got the riot starter. We trying to bring it to Burn It Down, and for those who don't know, Burn It Down has multiple meanings for that show.
Thank you.
Yeah. But anyway,
I think Kim and I got to do a show together.
Oh, no question.
Yes, please. I listen. I need some brothers. I need some reinforcements. I need some backup over there, yo. Guys,
man, they're gonna shut everything down.
Dog,
that'll be the last show.
Immediately.
These trolls they have left hundreds of comments under that show talking about how they have reported me to YouTube for terrorism. I'm like, terrorism, nigga? Terrorism? Really? Okay. Is that not the pot calling the kettle black? And we're going to do a whole show on Friday about Manifest Destiny and how that was just OG looting since these people frontaled about looting. Let me tell you a little story about y'all ancestors real quick, since y'all got so much offense to looting. Let's talk about looting on this continent. Let's go there. Sorry.
Wow.
Now, Jared, you know this is your fault, right? You said you was bringing on, so that I just want you to know when we all get white ball.
I just responded to the energy. And it was like, hey, welcome aboard, Kim.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Very happy to be here.
Yes. See, there's some things I want to say, but they say I go too far, so I'm gonna let you get loose, and then I do mine publicly.
Listen, Kalanji, God would not have laid those words on your heart if it was not meant for you to speak them, sir.
Shamalama Zumalama. Amen.
All that. Say it.
We got it.
Hey, look, because I know we want to make sure because Kalanji got to go get his Uncle Nearest break before the 4 o'clock event starts.
You better know it. You're gonna drink black.
You know what I'm saying?
And smoke green.
And I was gonna say Kim probably about to roll something before the 4 o'clock thing gets started. So we're gonna get everybody a chance to get their breaks before we head over to letmumiaout.com and check out this press conference. and get Mumia out of here. Kim Kalonji, definitely thanks for joining us this afternoon. Really appreciate you
No
jumping
doubt.
on here for this BPM special, man. Really
I
good
got to
stuff.
say free Imam Jamil as well. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, no
One of my
question.
leaders, Imam Jamil Alameen, formerly H-Rap Brown. I won't be able to go back to the community if I don't definitely say, you know what I mean? We're going to have to come back and do an episode on Imam Jamil as well because of the fact he's one of our hardcore freedom fighters who, when you talking about burn it down, when you talking about burn, baby, burn.
Please.
A friend of my uncle told me one time in Bridgeport, Connecticut, he said he was stationed in the military in D.C. And he said whenever H-Rap Brown would get within a 50-mile radius, they would get 50 caliber machine guns in the back of trucks and the whole nine because of the fact that they was afraid that H-Rap Brown would burn it down. You know what I mean? So Imam Jamil is a political prisoner right now. One of my favorite freedom fighters, one of the people who has inspired me to do what I do. And, you know, we're going to free them all one way or another.
That's right.
Right on.
Free Keith Davis Jr., y'all. Don't forget about Keith Davis Jr. in Baltimore.
No doubt. No doubt.
Hey, absolutely. Free them all. Everybody, hit the like button, share button, subscribe button, join button, all that good stuff. And thanks again, everybody. And as always, as Fred Hampton used to say to you, we say peace only if you're willing to fight for it. So peace, everybody. Catch you next time here at Black Power Media. Thanks again to everybody. Dr. Fernandez, Bob Boyle, Sophia, Kim Kalonji. Thanks. And Johanna, yeah, I think I said her, but hopefully, if I didn't, say it again. Thank you, Johanna, again.
Ready for revolution.
Right on. Peace. Yes,
Peace.
indeed. Yes, indeed.